Today at 5, a furious row erupts in Parliament over whether or not the Labour leader called the Prime Minister a stupid woman.
They're not impressed, and neither's the country.
Jeremy Corbyn denies using the phrase and claims he said stupid people in response to Theresa May.
I did not use the words stupid woman about the Prime Minister or anyone else, and am completely opposed to the use of sexist or misogynist language in absolutely any form at all.
We'll have the latest reaction and be discussing politics and sexism with the campaigner Caroline Criado Perez. The other main stories on BBC News at 5. The government sets out its immigration policy for the UK after Brexit. Ministers say it'll be skills that matter from now on.
We are absolutely not closing our doors. We are simply making sure that we have control over who comes through them.
The Labour MP Fiona Onasanya is found guilty of perverting the course of justice by lying to police to avoid a speeding charge. Millions of customers who don't shop around are being charged much more than they should be, says the market's watchdog.
We built this city on sausage rolls.
And later on, we'll be talking to the man trying to take his tribute to sausage rolls all the way to the Christmas #1. Good afternoon, it's 5 o'clock. Our main story. A furious row has broken out over comments made by Jeremy Corbyn during Prime Minister's question time. The Labour leader has vehemently denied calling Theresa May a stupid woman. He says he mouthed stupid people during an exchange about Brexit. Conservative MPs are calling on Mr Corbyn to apologise. Let's take a look at what happened and you can judge for yourself.
I've got some advice for the right honourable gentleman. Look behind you. They're not impressed, and neither's the country.
Well, let's cross now to our political correspondent Ian Watson, who joins us from Westminster. And Ian, turmoil in the Commons today.
Yes, absolute chaos at certain times, Rita. Just a week, less than a week in fact, to Christmas. No season of goodwill at Westminster, I can tell you. Very heated exchanges in the Commons, the normal business ground to a halt. Before Prime Minister's questions had even finished, a Conservative backbencher stood up and denounced Jeremy Corbyn for apparently calling the Prime Minister a stupid woman. There was then what's called a point of order, where a former Conservative Party chairman stood up and did the same thing. And then his calls on the Speaker, John Bercow, properly to investigate this incident, while Jeremy Corbyn had disappeared during the course of these complaints. And he took them so serious in the end, he got in the advice of professional lip speakers, communications professionals, who are used to trying to find out exactly what people are saying, how they form their words. He got a hold of the footage from the Commons as well, but Jeremy Corbyn's words weren't exactly audible. At the end of all this process, which took several hours with just a small matter of an immigration statement in between, he came back and issued his verdict, and this is what John Bercow had to say.
I believe the allegation made by a number of honourable and right honourable members was based upon the visual evidence from Parliament TV. I also have to rely purely on visual evidence. I am not a lip reader, or indeed a lip speaker. Nobody can be 100% certain. That includes professional lip readers. But I will naturally take, and would be expected to take, the word of any right honourable or honourable member.
So in the end, the investigation, as you heard, was inconclusive. That John Bercow said nobody could be 100% sure what was said. But just to show just how seriously this incident has been taken, Labour sources were then saying they'd consulted a forensic lip reader who'd suggested that Jeremy Corbyn had indeed not said the offensive phrase "stupid woman," which he himself said would have been misogynistic. So Jeremy Corbyn then responded, and he made it clear what he thought he'd said in response to the Prime Minister.
During Prime Minister's question time today, I referred to those who I believe were seeking to turn a debate about the national crisis facing our country into a pantomime as stupid people. Mr. Speaker, I did not use the words stupid woman about the Prime Minister or anyone else, and am completely opposed to the use of sexist or misogynist language in absolutely any form at all. And I'm happy to place that on the record at your request this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
So Jeremy Corbyn's defence effectively saying that he called Conservative MPs stupid people in general, rather than Theresa May a stupid woman in particular. In fact, his tail had been tweaked before he issued that comment, whatever it happened to be, because she was joking that he'd wanted to have a no-confidence motion on her. It was on, it was off. All the Conservative MPs were shouting effectively, in pantomime style, he's behind you, and oh yes he will, oh no he won't. So he wasn't in the best of humours at the time, but he's insisting that he didn't use a sexist phrase. But the reason I say that this was extraordinary scenes here, Rita, is because the fire wasn't just turned on the opposition leader, on Jeremy Corbyn this afternoon, but two Conservative MPs, the leader of the House, Andrea Leadsom, and Vicky Ford, stood up and accused John Bercow himself, the Speaker himself, of previously calling them stupid women. And I have to say, he did not necessarily respond in the Christmas spirit of goodwill to those accusations.
Extraordinary scenes indeed. Ian Watson, our political correspondent, many thanks. Downing Street has rejected a suggestion by the Home Secretary Sajid Javid that the government is dropping its commitment that net immigration, that's the number of new arrivals minus the number of people who emigrate, should be below 100,000 a year. In an interview with the BBC, Mr Javid refused 7 times to say whether he was committed to the target. This afternoon, the government set out its immigration policy after Brexit, saying it'll be migrant skills that count, not where they come from. People from EU countries will no longer have the automatic right to work in the UK after Brexit, as our Home Affairs correspondent Dominic Casciani explains.
It's the issue that lay at the heart of so many votes to leave the EU, immigration. Now, after more than a year of delays, and with 100 days before Brexit, the government is unveiling its radical reforms. And the proposals will affect almost every part of the British economy, as ministers pledge to put skills before freedom of movement. 2/3 of staff in this London coffee shop chain are from the EU. The owner says the highly competitive hospitality trade depends on staff from abroad, baristas from Poland, cooks from Italy, and everywhere in between.
It's really going to have a very bad effect on business, not just mine, but all hospitality businesses, all sorts of industries across the UK. I can only see it's going to have a really bad and detrimental effect. You do not get the applications from English-born people that you would need to survive in this business. You need to have a pool of people coming in to be able to fill those places and continue to grow this industry.
The Home Secretary Sajid Javid says from 2021 onwards, EU workers will be treated the same as those from the rest of the world.
The future system is about making sure immigration works in the best interests of the UK. We are absolutely not closing our doors. We are simply making sure that we have control over who comes through them.
EU workers have started to dry up since the referendum in 2016, but the number of people arriving from the rest of the world has increased. Today's white paper doesn't mention the Prime Minister's target to cut net migration to just tens of thousands. After hours of uncertainty, the Prime Minister confirmed the commitment still stands.
As the Home Secretary will not answer a rather straightforward question, yes or no, is it the Prime Minister's intention that her government will still reduce immigration to the tens of thousands?
Yes.
There'll be no cap on skilled workers for sectors like construction, which has helped drive up immigration. Farmers will get a deal for crop pickers, and there'll be no limit on low-skilled workers who come for up to a year. But NHS leaders warn a minimum salary test yet to be agreed could harm public services.
High skilled in the NHS does not necessarily mean salaries over £30,000. So we have junior doctors, we have nurses, we have midwives, we have paramedics who have starting salaries under £30,000. So our concern is whether we continue to have the supply of staff that we need.
But Brexit supporters say the economic concerns can be met and the public want change.
It'd be great to see that we have control of our immigration policy again. That was one of the main things that people wanted from the Leave vote in the referendum.
These proposals represent the most fundamental shift to the UK immigration system for more than 40 years. But so many questions remain unanswered. What jobs will we value most? How much are we prepared to pay to get the right people? And what's politically acceptable? Dominic Kashani, BBC News.
Well, the issue of immigration was a key issue at the 2016 referendum. So what are people in parts of the UK where there was a large vote to leave the EU making of these proposals? Our correspondent Sarah Ransom is in Torquay for us now. Sarah.
Yes, hello there. We've come in from the seafront now because those squally showers are still pulsing through the bay. But this area was an area that voted around 60% of those who actually put their cross on the ballot box, who voted to leave the EU. But this is an area that relies very heavily on tourism to prop up the local economy. And of course, part of that is the hospitality industry, where hundreds of people work within that sector. With me here is Becky Codridge. Now, Becky, you're the financial controller for the Richardson Hotel Group. 4 hotels, large hotels in that group. Talk to me a little bit about the concerns you have if some of these immigration policies come in.
Well, about 20% of our workers are actually from the EU. And, I mean, bear in mind we've got a £5.5 million payroll across the 4 hotels. That's a significant number. And we do find recruitment hard, especially in certain areas like chefs. And there's definitely a skill shortage. Last summer, we were using lots and lots of agency workers because we couldn't fill posts. And the European workers are excellent and they're happy to come over and work.
I was talking to a lot of people today, some of whom said to me, really a lot of these people should go back to where they came from because there should be jobs, British jobs for British people. What do you say to that if you were having problems filling those roles?
As far as we're concerned, you know, anyone can apply, but quite often we don't get the applicants locally, especially at senior roles as well. You know, we are recruiting from all over the country. And we've got a group general manager who's from Turkey, our head chef is from France, we've got a lot of people from Eastern Europe, and if we just can't get the UK workers, then why not?
In terms of the way this is shaping up now, in terms of the way that the government is trying to find a solution to what has been or was a hot topic during the referendum debate in terms of immigration, do you have any thoughts, bearing in mind you rely so heavily on those EU workers?
I mean, certainly I can understand people's sort of issues with people coming over and taking British jobs. But certainly I think if somebody has already been offered a job, then I don't see any reason why they can't come into the country. I mean, certainly the £30,000 limit is scary. I mean, certainly listening to the Home Secretary this morning, he was saying about there could be allowances, obviously, for NHS workers, but he didn't mention tourism. And, of course, we do have a lot of low-paid workers who aren't necessarily low-skilled.
Becky Codridge, thank you very much indeed. Of course, a major topic of debate here in the Bay. I'm sure that topic of debate will be held a lot in Westminster in the coming months.
Sarah, many thanks. A Labour MP has been found guilty of perverting the course of justice following a trial at the Old Bailey. Fiona Onasanya lied to the police to avoid a speeding charge. A Labour spokesman said she'd been suspended from the party and should resign as an MP. Well, our correspondent Sophie Long is at the Old Bailey for us now. And Sophie, a guilty verdict then. What were the scenes in court this afternoon?
Well, Fiona Onasanya sat quietly at the back of court when that guilty verdict was delivered. When she was elected Member for Parliament for Peterborough in June last year, it looked like it could be the beginning of a promising political career. But just 6 weeks later, her Nissan Micra was caught on a speed camera doing 41 miles per hour in a 30 zone. Now, she said she'd been overwhelmed by the work of a new MP, that her first office was in a corridor, she had thousands of unread emails, and that she assumed she'd she'd been at Westminster at the time of the offence, and she left the notice of intention to prosecute at her mother's house for whomever had borrowed her car to fill in. Now, the authorities were told that a Russian man, a former lodger of the Onyesanya family, had been at the wheel that night, but further inquiries revealed that he had actually been in Russia at the time visiting his family. Now, the prosecution argued that Fiona Onyesanya colluded with her brother Festus and told a succession of lies to police over a number of months to avoid prosecution. Her campaign manager gave evidence against her, saying that he had been at his house and left alone by car that evening. Now, the jury didn't accept her versions of events, and they found her guilty of perverting the course of justice. Now, in terms of her political career, the consequences could be severe. They will depend somewhat on sentencing, which will take place at a later date. But if she is jailed for a year or more, she will automatically lose her seat and a by-election will be called. If she is jailed for less than a year, then a recall petition could be issued. If she is not jailed, then she could decide to stay as an MP. But I should say at this stage that the Labour Party has already issued a statement saying that her behaviour falls well short of that of an elected politician. They have removed the whip and urged her to resign.
OK, Sophie, many thanks. Our correspondent Sophie Long there at the Old Bailey. Time for a look at the headlines now here on BBC News. The Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn denies calling Theresa May a stupid woman during Prime Minister's questions. The government sets out its immigration policy for the UK after Brexit. Ministers say it'll be skills that matter from now on. The Labour MP Fiona Onyesanya is found guilty of lying to police to avoid a speeding charge.
And in sport, Jose Mourinho breaks his silence after his sacking by Manchester United. In a statement, he says he's hoping for a normal life until he decides to return to football. This man here, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, is the interim manager now at Old Trafford. He said, Manchester United is in my heart and it is brilliant to be coming back in this role. And Olympic champion Adam Peaty has dared swimming's governing body to ban him after he backed plans for a new competition next year. The inaugural International Swimming League was due to take place this month but was cancelled after FINA threatened to prevent those who race from competing at the World Championships next year. And I will be back with more on those stories after 5:30. See you then.
Millions of loyal customers who stay with a company for years are being exploited by them, according to the competition watchdog. The Competition and Markets Authority found stealth price rises for services such as insurance, broadband and mobile phones are costing the average person nearly £900 a year. It's demanded an end to practices which it says are leaving people feeling let down and ripped off. Here's our personal finance correspondent, Simon Gompertz.
The loyalty penalty can grind off your hard-earned cash without you noticing. Nick, near Doncaster, found he was paying more than £1,000 a year more than he needed to for house insurance.
We were paying £1,929.82 a year.
Loyal for 21 years, the cost had tripled. Shopping around got him a policy for less than £500.
I think it's despicable. It's an easy way for them to make more money, so they'll just constantly put the price up year after year after year, and they assume that if people aren't making complaints and they're not chasing it up, then it's a safe bet for them.
Nick's provider, Santander, says the price went up because of claims he made.
2 strawberry, now £1. 2 blueberry, there £1.50.
But at Doncaster Market nearby, explanations from big companies get short shrift.
Well, I think it's a disgrace, actually, because I think loyal customers should get treated better.
It's just outrageous. It should be the other way around.
What would happen to you if you charged your loyal customers more than someone who just came in for the first time?
I wouldn't last 2 minutes. Well, I'd be bankrupt.
The competition watchdog is targeting insurance, mobiles when they keep charging for a phone even though you've paid for it, broadband, which might need a price cap, poor savings rates and mortgage deals, and contracts for antivirus software which roll over at higher prices.
We can imagine that following this report, some companies will change their behaviours in the next few weeks and months. Separately, if we believe that there are breaches of consumer law, we can take companies to court and a judge could order these companies to change their behaviours.
It's an issue which infuriates people because it seems unfair, it seems underhand that prices should be allowed to creep up without you knowing. And it happens because big businesses are allowed to charge their long-standing customers more.
What we want to see follow is legal action if necessary, if firms are continuing to exploit people for their loyalty, targeted price caps, as the CMA have raised today, if that's what's needed to protect the most vulnerable. I think it's a strong start, but there's a lot more to do.
Insurers say they're already changing their ways, but today's message is that people shouldn't have to be constantly in fear that companies will take advantage of them. Simon Gompertz, BBC News in Doncaster.
New figures show the rate of inflation fell slightly last month to 2.3%. Cheaper petrol and video games were behind the fall. Inflation is now at its lowest level since March last year. An independent study has found that millions of people could lose out if the UK becomes a cash-free society. The research commissioned by the cash machine network Link says many people, including those in debt and those living in rural areas, still depend on cash. It says they could be disadvantaged by further moves towards card payments. An inquest into the death of a Russian whistleblower in Surrey 6 years ago has concluded that he died of natural causes. Alexander Perepilichny, a wealthy businessman, had been handing over sensitive documents allegedly implicating Russian officials in Moscow in a huge fraud and money laundering operation. Activists said they believed he'd been murdered by Russian hitmen, another victim of a growing list. The police and his widow insisted he died of natural causes. Our correspondent Richard Galpin reports.
44-year-old Alexander Perepilichny was apparently in good health when he collapsed and died near his mansion in Surrey.
He was completely cold.
His body was found on a dark winter's day. He'd been jogging. Surrey police assumed he'd had a heart attack, but others who'd met him said it should have been treated immediately as suspicious. Because here in London, he'd been handing over sensitive documents to a British investment company, allegedly revealing how the company's branches in Moscow had been seized and then used to carry out a $200 million tax fraud. In this bar in Mayfair, Mr. Perepilichny apparently gave the company vital evidence, showing how those involved in the fraud had siphoned the money out of Russia. He knew, allegedly, because he'd helped them do it, but had now turned against them. These are copies of just some of the documents which Alexander Perepilichny handed over, allegedly showing how corrupt Russian officials and criminals in Moscow laundered millions of dollars through Swiss bank accounts. The company, Hermitage Capital, says his evidence led to some of the officials' bank accounts being frozen, making him a target for revenge.
Perepilichny had found out that his name was on a hit list. A Chechen hitman had documents in his house that were discovered by the Moscow police, which showed information about Perepilichny's movements, locations, and other things here in the UK.
While the inquest heard there was no evidence for this, in Washington it emerged Perepilichny's name was on a list compiled by US intelligence agencies of people believed to have been murdered in Britain by Russian hitmen, although the US government later denied this. So, the lab here, with no signs of a violent attack found on Mr. Perepilichny's body, toxicology experts here at Kew Gardens searched for traces of poison. But their tests yielded nothing definitive. The inquest heard, though, how most of Perepilichny's stomach contents had been thrown away after the first post-mortem, making testing more difficult. Police also lost all the data on a laptop found in Perepilichny's house, the data apparently including a transaction of $500 million.
To build beautiful things is part of my life.
Just before he died, Mr. Perepilichny spent several days in Paris with this fashion designer Elmira Medinska, who he was having an affair with. She told the inquest he'd seemed very stressed and was drinking a lot, but had not mentioned any concerns about his safety. When Mr. Perepilichny's widow, Tatiana, spoke at the inquest, her face hidden, she denied her husband had faced any threats and was adamant he had not been murdered, a view shared by Surrey police. The inquest's conclusion that Mr Peripolicny died of natural causes will bring at least some relief to his widow. But not everyone will accept this verdict. There may now be calls for a public inquiry. Richard Galpin, BBC News.
Now, we heard yesterday that the Prime Minister and her cabinet discussed ramping up preparations for a no-deal Brexit. Well, today the European Commission has published details of the measures it will take. Let's speak now to our Brussels reporter Adam Fleming. Adam, what are they saying?
Well, we've got 14 new draft EU laws that will help the EU cope with the situation that they call a hard Brexit. The UK leaving in March next year with no divorce deal in place. They've covered a few areas. So with citizens' rights, they've said to the governments of the member states of the EU, do what you can so that British citizens who live in an EU country now can carry on living and working there, even if there's no deal. On financial services, the EU is saying we will recognise some of the UK's financial services regulations as equivalent to European rules to allow some very narrow financial services to continue as they do now. And there's quite a lot of stuff on transport. There'll be a bare bones aviation stopgap solution where British airlines will still be able to fly in and out and over the EU, but they will not be able to operate flights between airports within the EU. And British truckers will still be able to bring goods into the EU for up to 9 months, but then after that they will have to apply for some very scarce international permits. The message from the EU is that this is bare bones. This is the minimum we're prepared to do. It's about protecting the EU's interests rather than helping the UK. And it's all designed to send a message that the deal that's on the table is better than this. So you should take it, Westminster. That's the message.
OK, Adam. Many thanks. Adam Fleming there. So what could the impact of a no deal have on travelling to the EU? With me is Simon Calder, the travel editor of The Independent. Thanks very much for coming in, Simon. So what impact could all this have on British passengers?
A very, very direct impact on tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of people who have booked some specific flights between the UK and the EU. Chris Grayling, the Transport Secretary, very keen Brexiteer, has been maintaining all along that things will continue as normal or as now in aviation. In a sense, he's absolutely right, because the EU has said, yes, we will continue to allow flights between the UK and the EU, but not one single flight extra in 2019 than we had in 2018. And that means with airlines such as British Airways, Ryanair, EasyJet, Jet2 announcing hundreds of extra flights, which they've been selling, they will simply be told, sorry, you're not allowed to. British Airways even put a new flight on sale today from London City to Split in Croatia, along with new flights to France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Greece. Those flights will not be able to go ahead.
But how will people know whether when they're booking, whether it's an old flight or a new flight?
Well, exactly. That is very, very messy. In fact, the actual wording of the legislation, which is very technical and very dense, is just there won't be any more flights between the UK and each member state. And by the way, they stress if, for instance, Spain or Portugal said, look, we've got huge demand, let's just negotiate with Britain. They said you can't do that. And so therefore it's a bit of a nail biter, but of course this is entirely in the event of no deal. If it were to happen, then you would find all those people who've booked on those flights and all the extra added demand, because the number of people expected to travel next year is probably 5 or 6% higher, they would be bidding for the existing seats, and that of course would push fares up. So not a very bleak summer, not a particularly good summer outlook in the midwinter.
In the event of a no deal. We must stress this is about us crashing out without a deal. One more thing, what about entry regulations into the European Union? How will they change?
We kind of know what's going to happen there, regardless of whether there's a deal or not. We will be third country nationals, which means that we don't go through the fast track queue. But much more significantly, the government is warning you from the 30th of March onwards, you've got to have at least 6 months validity left on your passport, or you might not be allowed in. And that would mean that you wouldn't actually be allowed on the flight from Gatwick or Manchester or Edinburgh or whatever. That's the real crucial thing at the moment. And that is going to happen regardless of whether there's a deal or no deal, as far as we know.
OK, very good to be prepared. Simon Calder, thanks as always. OK, time for a look at the weather now. Let's join Matt Taylor.
Thanks, Reeta. Very good evening too. Very pleasant end to the day across eastern parts of the country, certainly compared with yesterday's evening rush hour. But in the west, we've got plenty of showers around at the moment. They've been quite heavy through the day. You can see them here, just starting to push their way more widely across southern Scotland, northern England, through towards the Midlands as well. Some along the south coast have been continuing throughout. Those showers will push to some northern eastern areas tonight. One or two spots will stay dry, if you manage to stay dry for any length of time, with clear skies across northern eastern areas. So quite a chilly night. Well, there's a chance of a touch of frost here and there, with temperatures down into low single figures. So chilly start to tomorrow morning. There'll still be a few showers around, possible just about anywhere first thing. The signs are, though, southern areas will see fewer showers through the day, though, with a lot more sunshine developing. But parts of northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, especially further north and west you're more likely to see showers continue on and off throughout. Some of those heavy, thundery, bit of a breeze blowing with them, but nothing too substantial. And temperatures similar to today's values at around 6 to 11 Celsius. As for into Friday, we'll like to see more in the way of rain to take us into the start of the day. That could linger across parts of southern Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England. But Saturday, sunshine and showers yet again, and a fairly mild weekend in store too. Bye for now.
Hello, this is BBC News, the headlines. The Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn denies calling Theresa May a stupid woman during Prime Minister's questions.
I did not use the words stupid woman about the Prime Minister or anyone else, and am completely opposed to the use of sexist or misogynist language in absolutely any form at all.
The government sets out its immigration policy for the UK after Brexit. Ministers say it'll be skills that matter from now on. The Labour MP Fiona Onasanya is found guilty of lying to police to avoid a speeding charge. And what's your favourite Christmas film? We'll be finding out which is Britain's most popular festive film shortly. Time for the sport now, and with the full roundup, here's Sarah Mulcurran. Sarah.
Thank you very much, Reeta. Let's start with Jose Mourinho, because he says he will not discuss his departure from Manchester United out of the deepest respect for his former colleagues. Mourinho was sacked yesterday after 2.5 years in charge at Old Trafford, following the club's worst league start for 28 years. United are 19 points behind leaders Liverpool in the Premier League table. They sit in 6th place, and today he said the following in a statement: I have been immensely proud to wear the badge of Manchester United since the first day I arrived, and I believe all United supporters recognise this. Each time a chapter is closed, I show my deepest respect and I don't make any comments about my former colleagues. I hope the media will also respect my position and let me live my normal life until the moment I decide to return to football. Well, we know Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was confirmed as United's interim manager earlier. He will be there until the end of this season. Andy Swiss has been assessing the Norwegian's appointment.
As a player, he was no stranger to rescuing United.
Solskjaer takes it. Oh, he scored! Super Sub has done it again!
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's goals made him an Old Trafford legend. He scored the winner in the 1999 Champions League final. But now he's back with a very different challenge as caretaker manager. In a statement, Solskjaer said, "Manchester United is in my heart and it's brilliant to be coming back in this role." While the club's vice-chairman Ed Woodward said his history at Manchester United means he lives and breathes the culture here. We are confident he will unite the players and the fans. That's a hint, perhaps, of what was lacking under Jose Mourinho, who was sacked yesterday after weeks of turmoil. And fans I spoke to this morning welcomed the Norwegian's appointment.
Absolutely delighted. I think he's going to bring the feel-good factor back to the club. You know, we've had negative football for so long, and we need an uplift.
We've had Moyes, we've had Van Gaal, and we've had Mourinho. We need the time to make sure that we get the right appointment for our next permanent manager, and I think Ollie for the next 6 months will do.
There were even congratulations from Norway's Prime Minister Erna Solberg. "Great day for Norwegian football," she tweeted. But not everyone is so happy. Solskjaer has only managed once in the Premier League at Cardiff,
That ended in relegation and the sack, which some believe hardly bodes well.
To be putting an interim manager now is a shambles as it is. Let's get it right. 5 wins from 30 at Cardiff. Listen, he might have scored the winning goal in the Champions League final, but is this where really Manchester United are at?
This morning it was training as usual for United's players. Among those arriving, Paul Pogba, who'd become disillusioned under Mourinho. Solskjaer will have to re-energise him and the rest of the squad as United hope the return of this club hero can start bringing back the glory days. Andy Swiss, BBC News.
Olympic champion Adam Peaty has dared swimming's governing body to ban him after he backed plans for a new competition next year. The inaugural International Swimming League was due to take place in Italy this month, but it was cancelled after FINA threatened to prevent those who raced from competing in next year's World Championships. Over 30 of the world's best swimmers met in London today to back plans to launch the ISL next August and to establish a swimmers' union which is independent from FINA. 2 former Wales captains have been named as assistants to the incoming coach, Wayne Pivac. Stephen Jones and Jonathan Humphreys will join the setup when Pivac takes over from Warren Gatland after next year's World Cup. Former fly half Jones there won 104 caps for his country. He said he was looking forward to what he hoped would be an exciting period in Welsh rugby. Well, that is all your sport for now. Remember, you can find lots more on all those stories on the BBC Sport website. That is bbc.co.uk/sport. That's it from now, Rita.
Thanks very much indeed, Sarah. Let's get more now on that row over claims that Jeremy Corbyn called the Prime Minister a stupid woman during Prime Minister's questions. The Labour leader has refuted the allegations, saying he said stupid people instead. While the writer and feminist campaigner Caroline Criado-Perez is in central London for us now. Caroline, many thanks for joining us. Extraordinary scenes in the Commons today, really. A great deal of heat and a great deal of anger. What did you make of it all?
I find it incredibly frustrating, to be honest, that we're wasting yet more time on something that, let's face it, isn't particularly surprising. We've seen Jeremy Corbyn reacting in this way to a woman who is talking robustly to him, who's debating with him. He clearly said, stupid woman. I don't want to be arguing about this. What I want to be talking about is, you know, for example, why isn't Jeremy Corbyn talking about how women are going to be disproportionately impacted by Brexit? Why isn't he calling a vote of no confidence in the government? We just don't have time for Parliament to spend a day arguing about who has lip-read Corbyn correctly.
Do you think the fact, despite that, do you think the fact that it was a throwaway, sideways remark makes a difference?
A difference in what way?
In that he is being perhaps targeted unfairly, some might say, because he wasn't directing it to her.
No, he's not being targeted unfairly. You know, very clearly this is a reaction of a man who doesn't like having women talking to him in this way. He doesn't like being humiliated by women, as a lot of men don't, and that is a problem, that is an issue. It's just that I don't think that it's something that we should be spending time talking about right now. Is this what the country really cares about? Is this what the country wants our MPs, our Parliament to be focusing on 100 days before we crash out of the EU with no deal? I would argue that it's not. I would argue that the country would like Jeremy Corbyn to actually do something and do something positive to prevent us having to, you know, crash out, not have medicines, and all the negative things that will go for women if we do crash out. You know, there's going to be a huge impact on women, and I think most women care about that a lot more. That's not to say that what Jeremy Corbyn did is okay. It's absolutely not okay. It's just that I don't think it's something that as a country we can afford to be indulging in discussion on.
I suppose what was so interesting for those of us watching it is that although it started with whether Jeremy Corbyn said stupid woman or stupid people, what then went on to happen was other MPs, Conservative female MPs, getting up and accusing the Speaker of having treated them in the same way, which suggested, whether they're right or not, something much more endemic.
Well, it absolutely is endemic, and I was very pleased that they stood up and they said that, and I thought that it was, you know, I was proud of them, I guess, for standing up for themselves. And it is a problem, but in sort of parliaments across the world. I mean, if you look at the statistics, actually, the more, it's not something that's getting better. It's one of those things that we often think will just get better if we just wait it out. You know, men will get less sexist. But the reality is that studies show that actually the more women there are in a parliament, the more aggressively their male colleagues behave towards them. The theory, of course, being that they start to feel threatened if there's more than sort of just a handful of women who are just tokens. So it absolutely is an endemic issue. And as I said, I'm not saying that this isn't a problem. I'm not saying that it's okay that the leader of the opposition speaks about our Prime Minister in that way, that speaks about any woman in that way, that clearly has a problem with women talking to him in a robust manner. But I still maintain that actually what we need Corbyn to be doing is calling for a no confidence vote in the government and calling for a people's vote, rather than us worrying about whether or not he called Theresa May a stupid woman, or if he is, as he very implausibly claims, he said stupid people. I mean, he clearly didn't.
He says what he says, and we have to accept that. Absolutely clear that your frustration with the way in which the debate has been diverted comes over loud and clear. I'm very interested in what you just said in that last answer, though, which is that actually men's antagonism, sexism, call it what you will, towards women goes up the more women that there are. So that goes against the theory that having a critical mass, a female presence, will actually dilute the sexism.
Well, I think it's sort of works both ways in a way. So the more women there are, the more funding goes on education, for example, the more funding goes on social care, the more parliamentary time is spent debating things that impact on women. And women do talk about women's issues more than men do. So it is incredibly important to have women in the chamber. I suppose the point is that you have to get, you have to get to equality probably before we stop having these issues. You have to get to a point where women are not just, people often talk about 30% being the magic number, but it's not. It'll only be the magic number when women are as common as men. And at that point, I think there will be no point in seeing women as a threat and seeing women as unusual, which is, I think why this happens, why it happens that male MPs react in this sort of threatened way, because it's clearly about feeling threatened, having their sense of power being threatened by having too many women there. So the only way of curing that is to get more women. But the sad fact is that the more women that we get up to a certain point, yes, that's how the men are going to react, but we just have to push through it.
OK. Caroline Criado-Perez, we've got to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you. Now, with 6 days to go before Christmas, the nation has voted for its favourite Christmas film, and the winner is the 1946 classic It's a Wonderful Life. Over 7,000 people took part in the Radio Times survey. Here's a flavour of the top 5.
This is my house. I have to defend
it. Trading for a package of sunshine and ravioli. Macaroni, if you want the thing you love.
You did it! Congratulations! World's best cup of coffee. Great job, everybody.
It's in the singing of a street corner choir. It's going home and getting warm by the fire. It's true wherever you find love, it feels like Christmas.
You see, George, you really had a wonderful life. Don't you see what a mistake it would be to throw it away?
Clarence?
Yes, George?
Where's Mary?
Happy moments. Well, Radio Times commissioning editor Kasia Delgado is here with me now. Kasia, what makes a good Christmas film and why did It's a Wonderful Life win?
I think it's got to be very cosy. You've got to get a real sense of warmth when you watch it. I think It's a Wonderful Life is so popular because you have this great adversity. You have this man who doesn't think his life has any meaning anymore. He goes on this journey through despair, and then it turns out that his life is worth living. And I think a lot of us really can relate to that at Christmas. You know, it's a lovely time for lots of people, but it can also be a bit difficult. So there's a kind of real sentimentality and a lovely, hopeful message at the end.
This film came out in 1946. Why does an older film top the list rather than something more recent?
I think it has a lot to do with nostalgia, and if you grow up watching that film, maybe your parents, maybe even your grandparents, then you're going to love watching that with those people. Christmas can be, for lots of people, a time about, you know, to be with family, a time to be together. So it's a lovely thing to watch with people who enjoyed it when they were younger too.
And what are the ingredients then for a good Christmas film?
I think you need snow. You have to have snow, especially here where there's so little snow. Lots and lots of humans coming together and kind of saving the day. I think that really, if you look at the list, there's lots of, you know, you've got Elf, you've got he has a terrible time and then he finds the meaning of family. You've got Love Actually, where there are all these strands with different humans kind of facing quite tough times. And then in the end, there's this really lovely, sometimes cheesy, but overall just quite warm message at the end.
And do we really want to watch the same films over and over every Christmas?
Well, I think there is we are creatures of habit, and actually I think in this country we really do. It's lovely to watch a new Christmas film sometimes, but I think it's quite hard sometimes to get into the festive spirit. You know, everyone's busy, we have quite sort of intense lives, and if you watch a film that you watched when you were younger and really feels festive, it can really take you into that moment and you're kind of ready for the chaos of Christmas.
And from your personal point of view, did the right film win?
I think it did win, but I am a big fan of Muppets Christmas Carol as well, and I'm really pleased that that's on there, kind of a very close sort of in the top 5.
Controversial, but thank you. Kasia Delgado, thank you very much. Thank you. OK, time for a look at the headlines now here on BBC News. The Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn denies calling Theresa May a stupid woman during Prime Minister's questions. The government sets out its immigration policy for the UK after Brexit. Ministers say it'll be skills that matter from now on. The Labour MP Fiona Onasanya is found guilty of lying to police to avoid a speeding charge. And an update on the market numbers for you. Here's how London's and Frankfurt ended the day. And in the United States, this is how the Dow and the Nasdaq are getting on. The tech entrepreneur Elon Musk has been showing off the first tunnel built by his company to try to solve the congestion problem in Los Angeles. Mr. Musk says commuters will one day use automated cars to cross the city in a series of tunnels, travelling at very high speeds. Our correspondent Peter Bowes has peered inside.
A new way to get around. A tunnel that transports cars and passengers at speeds of up to 150 miles per hour. The 1 mile stretch snakes its way under a city street to the south of Los Angeles. Shrouded in secrecy up until now, this is Elon Musk's pet project. Built by the billionaire entrepreneur's construction outfit known as the Boring Company, the goal is to solve the problem of chronic traffic congestion.
Would it be incredible if you could travel around LA, New York, DC, Chicago, Paris, London, anywhere at 150 miles an hour? That'd be phenomenal. I mean, traffic is soul destroying. It's like acid on the soul. It's horrible. We must go away.
This is the start of the tunnel. It's a very narrow tunnel, just wide enough for a family car, in this case a modified Tesla Model X. To get through this tunnel, it has what they call alignment wheels on the front. They keep it on track as it's heading through this stretch of tunnel, which is just over a mile long.
Eventually, there could be hundreds of miles connecting neighbourhoods in this sprawling city. It could ease the pain of millions on their daily commute.
As long as it doesn't have any detrimental effect on the environment, I think that would be a good idea, because we've had a lot of issues with traffic. And I mean, I personally, coming from San Diego, have a lot of issues coming here with all the traffic. So if it works, I'm all for it.
There are other alternatives. I mean, there's high-speed rail. I used to live in Japan, and you know, I think that's you know, that's something that's also worth exploring. By distributing.
The unveiling of this futuristic tunnel is being closely watched by transport industry analysts. But is it realistic?
Elon Musk has this amazing ability to put on a great show and make a project look like it's this shiny, glossy, finished thing. But in reality, what he's unveiled is a concrete tunnel. It could be a sewer. It's painted nicely in white. He's got an awful long way to go from translating that into a citywide transportation network.
Elon Musk says he hopes a network of tunnels will be running in Los Angeles by the time the city hosts the Olympic Games in 2028. While some observers are sceptical, this may be the dawning of a new era in fast, environmentally friendly transport. Peter Bowes, BBC News, Los Angeles.
It's 175 years today since Charles Dickens introduced the world to his vision of Christmas in A Christmas Carol. To mark the occasion, our arts correspondent David Silito got the chance to get his hands on a precious first edition on display in central London.
Well, I'm handling this very gently, a little bit of literary history here. This is a first edition of A Christmas Carol, and it came out today, exactly 175 years ago. And I'm joined now by the great-great-great-granddaughter of the author, Charles Dickens, Lucinda Hawksley. What sort of response was there when it went into the shops then?
An immediate response. 6,000 copies were printed on the 19th of December. They'd all sold out by Christmas Eve.
It was a fairly expensive book as well, wasn't it?
It was. Dickens wanted it to be a thing of beauty. It cost 5 shillings, which was a decent amount of money.
So rich people were buying this. The message of the book?
Well, this was what Dickens wanted. Rich people, well, he wanted them to read the book and realise they're all a bit like Ebenezer Scrooge. This was Dickens's desperate attempt to get the issue of child poverty into all the houses in Britain.
And this also comes at a moment when you're standing by something. Well, it's quite a discovery, this, isn't it?
This is known as the Dickens Lost Portrait. This is what Dickens looked like at the age of 31 when he wrote A Christmas Carol. It's a miniature by the Scottish artist Margaret Gillies, recently discovered in South Africa, hasn't been seen in this country since 1844. And we're trying to raise money now to bring it home to the Dickens Museum in London. People can donate via the Dickens Museum website, and the Dickens Lost Portrait could come home.
Lucinda Hawksley, thank you very much indeed. Well, there it is, 175 years on, a memory of what has become, well, Christmas tradition.
That's David Silito there. Now, a YouTube blogger from Hemel Hempstead is battling the pop star Ariana Grande for the Christmas #1. Mark Hoyle, otherwise known as Lad Baby, is currently second in the charts, just 1,000 sales off the top spot. His single, We Built This City on Sausage Rolls, is raising money for the Trussell Trust, who run food banks across the country. Well, before we speak to Mark, let's have a listen.
If you've never had one and don't recognise the taste, it's a cylindrical bit of pork wrapped in a puff pastry case. Beige baked and golden, holier than grace. Grab it whilst it's piping hot and shove it in your face. They're party-sized and foot long. Listen to your belly groan. Don't you remember? We built this city. We built this city on sausage rolls.
Well, Mark Hoyle, otherwise known as Lad Baby, is here with me. So, Mark, even you were holding your hands, your head in your hands a little bit, watching yourself there. What on earth inspired you to make this song?
You know what? It was quite funny. Somebody tweeted me about it about 6 months ago. They said I should do it, and then I downloaded the original song. I played it to my little boy, and he just went wild dancing around the living room. So I thought, if he's up for it, why don't I just give it a go? And it's sort of just snowballed from there, I guess.
And it's your family that we see there in the
It is, yeah. That's my
video.
long-suffering wife, and the 2 boys are mine. So, yeah, it's a family affair.
And did you have any idea that it would be as popular as it's become?
I don't think anyone had that idea, did they? I don't think anyone thought it'd be as big as what it has been, but we're so close now to a #1, and I so want it, but we'll see.
Yeah. And of course you're doing it for a good cause, aren't you? You're doing it for the Trussell Trust. Tell us why you chose them.
Yeah, you know, we went down to a single parent income a couple of years ago when we had our first son, and we struggled for a little while on, you know, making ends meet, and we know the struggle that people go through, especially with food. And Rox's mum works at, well, she volunteers at a food bank for the Trussell Trust. We know some of the stories that she's told us, so it was just really important for us to give back to those people, especially at Christmas. And yeah, hopefully if people are looking to donate at Christmas, this is only 99p and can not only help a good cause, but also get me to #1, which is good fun.
And how much are you hoping to raise?
You know what? The initial idea for this was we just wanted to make the top 40. The fact now that we're going for #1 is above and beyond what I hoped. So anything is fantastic.
And the competition is extraordinary. Ariana Grande.
Who? Yeah, no, it
She's
really
saying,
is.
who's Lad Baby?
Yeah, she no doubt is. We laughed about this. She's probably tweeting, going, "Who's this guy?" But yeah, you know, it's funny. But hey, we're in the UK, and if sausage rolls can't beat a pop star to #1, then what can?
And are you at all worried that you have ruined Starship's original classic for many people forever?
I think I've improved it. Probably not with my lyrics, but you know, maybe.
Mark Hoyle, Lad Baby, we wish you very well indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, and we won't be able to get that out of our heads, I think. OK, time for a look at the weather now. Let's go over to Matt Taylor.
Thank you very much, Rita. Very good evening to you. Well, certainly a better end to the day across eastern parts compared with yesterday. A lot more sunshine around. We have got showers in the west. But here's how we finish the day, overlooking the Firth of Forth from the Fife side of the estuary, and you can see lovely sunset there, bit of high cloud, but the real cloud's been across western areas to end the day. Lots of showers showing up, these deeper blues, some heavy showers now. Parts of Dumfries and Galloway, northwest England, across Wales, the West Midlands too, and they will be driven a bit further northwards and eastwards through the night, so even some eastern parts, you go into the night dry. Can't promise you'll stay that way throughout. Enough of a breeze to push those showers right across the country, but if you do stay dry and any lengthy clear skies tonight, especially across Scotland and eastern England, this is where we could see temperatures drop low enough for a touch of frost into tomorrow morning. But whenever you're waking up, it will be a rather cool start to Thursday. Varying amounts of cloud, bit of sunshine here and there, but also the chance of a shower just about anywhere first thing. Showers will become very few in number during the day across Wales, the Midlands, southern England. Some parts of northeast mainland Scotland could get away largely dry, but showers across west of Scotland, Northern Ireland, northwest England, North Wales will be frequent throughout the day. Bit of a breeze blowing with those showers, but elsewhere the showers, as I said, only push through quite smartly on any breeze that you do see. Temperatures tomorrow similar to today's values at around 6 to 11 degrees. And as we go into the evening and overnight, showers for a time, but then turn our attention to more persistent rain starting to edge its way in across parts of southwest England and South Wales. And this weather system actually bring out a wet and windy spell through the night across Wales, Midlands and southern England. Heavy to the rain still lingering across East Anglia and the southeast for the early rises on Friday. That clears out the way. Sunnier conditions will develop, but a trail of a weather front across northern England, parts of southern Scotland and Northern Ireland will continue to feed in lots of cloud, patchy rain or drizzle. Brighter weather but cooler conditions to the north of it after a frosty start. Mild but sunny for many in the south, but you'll notice even by the end of the afternoon some heavy thundery showers could work their way in. And the weather charts for the weekend are fairly messy in what they show. Lots of weather fronts around. We will see some outbreaks of rain come and go throughout the weekend. If you're Christmas shopping, Saturday better chance of some longer dry spells. Probably better chance of being that bit wetter on Sunday at the moment. But for all, temperatures above levels they should be for the time of year. 14 degrees for some as we go into Sunday afternoon. But to add that little bit of a festive feeling to the start of next week, mild air shifts out the way. We could see something a little bit cooler as we head into the weekend. All the details are available on the BBC Weather website. The BBC News at 6 is next.
At 6:30, Sports Day will have the latest sports news. Then at 7, The View from Washington in Beyond 100 Days.
The moments that defined the year. Review 2018. Tonight at 8:30 on the BBC News Channel.
看就是你们觉得我在你们心中是属于温柔的那种，还是性感的那种，还是比较可爱的那种，还是女汉子？
And they're pointing it at me and they're walking toward me and I'm telling them to drop the knife.
J'ai déjà perdu une sœur, mais celle-là, il faut que j'aille la voir.
On a des choses à se raconter quand même.
Stories that speak for themselves. Our World, the best of 2018, starts Saturday at 9:30 on the BBC News channel.
Stories set to shape the news agenda. Headlines freshly written. Original perspectives on the day's unfolding narratives. See the bigger picture as it emerges. The Papers, weeknights at 10:40 on the BBC News channel.